Trying to set this stream up here. We'll wait a minute to see if I've got it right. Getting there. All right, we'll wait 60 seconds here and then we'll get into it as we have a bit of a bear break underway. I've only got a half hour here and then I got to do live stream the end of the stock trading day. All right, that's enough people for now. So, Bitcoin just had a bear break, and it was actually led to the downside by some of the altcoins with a more furious dump. And let's look at Litecoin first. Pulling up LTC USD. So Litecoin had the most clear break of support on the daily time frame after showing us that it was the weakest name over the last few days. So Litecoin, big clear bear break. The low was $70. We had a base of support at that level. And as soon as it broke, you can tell on this kind of move that it's a lot of stops triggering because of that all-out dump. Personally, you want to be very careful trying to play these bounces because this is such a tight pattern that we can be looking for the potential of some decent follow-through. Right now, it all boils down to Bitcoin for me because Bitcoin has broken some support levels, but there's still a bunch of support levels left. So we're at 9,700 and we have to see another 7% to the downside to break all of our supports. The most important longer term time frame that we're looking at is the monthly. And the question is Bitcoin going to follow Litecoin and Ethereum and Binance and consolidate on the monthly time frame and have to form a higher low? Odds at this point certainly favor yes, that will have to happen. But it hasn't happened yet. We have to see a break of 9,000. That would be inside monthly bars breaking bearish, and that would have us looking for a higher low. And the first rough target I would have would be the monthly exponential support down around the mid $7,000 range. That's all about 9,000 for me, big picture. Looking at it on the weekly chart, we're still right at the exponential support. It is possible the bulls still save that level. And even our little weekly higher low here of 9,470 hasn't broken just yet. So 9,470 and 9,000 are the most important support levels for me. If those levels hold, it's a scenario where we see a bear break with a lack of follow through. We had a bull break of one resistance level with a lack of follow through. At this point, it's a bear break of a couple support levels, but really only one very clear support level of 97.59. Pretty much the bears have to see follow through into tomorrow. This one bear break is not enough. The bulls can still play defense here and protect some of the longer term levels from breaking, and we're going to have to see a break of 94.70 probably in the next, I'd say if we don't break that level in the next 4 or 5 hours, that the bulls did a good job defending that support. So looking at it on the short term time frame, we have the 5-minute time frame. We're just going to be looking for a lower high on any bounce. We have the exponential resistances. So short term RSI levels are out the window, and why I say that is when you have a real tight range, those RSI levels get extra sensitive and extra responsive to breaks. So the fact that we just dropped 4 or 5%, and actually it was more about 5% on Bitcoin, 5-6%, but that 5-minute RSI just dumped down to 5 instantly because it's so sensitive when you get that tight. So use longer term time frame RSI levels, longer term time frame support levels, and the question is, can the bulls play defense? The bears played defense on this bull break that Bitcoin saw 2 days ago and knocked the price down with no follow through. The bulls have the possibility to do the same. We're going to do the same zoom out game as always. We're going to bounce and look for a 5-minute lower high. If the bulls are able to change the 5-minute trend, we zoom out to the 15-minute. We'll look at the 15-minute exponential resistances. Then we'll look at the hourly lower high, the 4-hour lower high. So we at least now have short-term direction. And the question is, how much follow through can the bears put together? At this point, I'm not playing this dump. As soon as I saw the dump, I looked at Litecoin and I did put in some low bids in case things got really ugly. None of them filled. And that's just me being extra cautious. If you're going to get extreme and head to me, If the trade's going to come to me in very extreme levels, I'll scale in some positions. But otherwise, I am not in a rush to try and time this little 5-minute bounce attempt. So let's go one by one through these coins as we normally do. I'll look at the chat here after I'm done doing my run through. But Ethereum, so bigger picture daily time frame, 171 support did break. So we are at the lowest price we've seen on this consolidation. And again, just a monthly picture, that monthly pullback for a higher low is already underway. So looking at that here, we have our low of 80, our high of 364, and now we're looking for a higher low. What's the middle of that range? That's about, 220. So we're already below the midway point, which increases the odds, in my opinion, that it would be an equilibrium as opposed to a higher low and then higher high move. So rather than seeing that in crypto on these major names that are pulling back on the monthly, I think the most likely scenario is wherever we find a higher low compared to 80, which I'm anticipating is going to happen, we're going to then look for a lower high. So in a fairly recent video, maybe in the last week or two, I talked about how the cryptocurrency space may see ranges tighten up on this monthly time frame and volatility really drop off in the space in Q4 2019 into Q1 2020. That's a possibility, and if it were to play out that way, again, it would look something like this in my opinion, and probably looking at a break Q1, Q2 2020. So that's looking further out than I normally do, but big picture, I want to know that we might not see a ton of trading opportunity once we look for monthly higher lows. That's going to be the bulls' next best opportunity in this space. Changing the daily trend back in favor of the bulls will be the first indication the monthly higher lows have been established. That's a higher risk, higher reward play if you're acting on the daily trend change. A more conservative bull is going to wait for a weekly trend change with a higher low and higher high. Obviously, I'm only talking about Ethereum and Litecoin and names that are consolidating on the monthly right now because Bitcoin's not even pulling back yet. So let's just go back to Bitcoin on the monthly. If we break 9,000, low of 3, high of 14, we'll call it, and we're going to look for a higher low on the monthly chart somewhere in the $6,000 to $7,000 range, roughly speaking. Again, the midway point would be about 86, 8,500, midway point of this range. And again, the further we pull back, the less the odds favor continuation on the monthly as opposed to an equilibrium on the monthly. So again, that's something that I'll be watching for if we break 9,000 on Bitcoin. But that's something we're already watching for on these other names. ETH, BTC, the bear break as well. Pointed out how this pattern was the exact same as this pattern. We got a little daily break of resistance with zero follow through. It ended up being a bear flag. Here we had a little bull break of one resistance level, not the second resistance level. And here we are heading back down to lower lows. So bears are still in complete control of the ETH, BTC chart. Another pattern that I'm watching is essentially having a lower high every single week for the last 11 weeks. There was one little week where it was just barely higher, but I'm going to round that one down and we'll say 11 weeks in a row with a lower high. When that pattern changes, we're just going to look for a weekly lower high to be set. But the Bitcoin pairing, certainly very weak on Ethereum. So Litecoin, we already got the bear break. 5-minute time frame, trying to get some bounce follow through. So bear break on the daily time frame, under $70. Again, let's go to the monthly chart. Big picture. We always want to know what the big picture is and then zoom in from there and watch to see how these smaller term time frames interact with what the most likely scenario on the big picture is. So low of 22, high of 146. Midway point of that range is roughly low 80s. We're already well below that midway point. So again, the odds of continuation versus the odds of an equilibrium are less favorable. So an equilibrium is the most likely scenario, in my opinion. We'll look for a higher low compared to 22. We'll then look for a bounce and a lower high compared to 146. And it's a possible scenario of a tightening range into 2020. Looking at the LTC BTC chart. So it too has made a bear break, but it's getting a much better bounce. Again, bulls aren't proving anything to me. This is just the bulls playing defense. And I would have to see the bulls break 7-4 in order to say, well, that's a very significant buying of the dip and break of resistance. Look at the daily exponential resistance rejecting the price all month. So it's a nice dip buy, but it's not proving anything to us unless we break resistances on the longer term time frames. So I am interested in Litecoin. Like I said, I did place some bids down there. Just missed filling. Had a bid right under 64, but Not going to chase this, just going to wait for things to sort themselves out. And if you don't like playing oversold bounces, you are either playing bearish or you're patiently waiting for bulls to prove themselves on longer term time frames. There's no rush here in terms of jumping into bullish trades. So looking at XRP. XRP is heading back down towards its low. The only support is 2365, the lowest price we've seen in a very long time during this consolidation. So we bounced at 245 currently. Daily pattern is very clear lower highs, very clear exponential 12-period resistance, and anything under 2806, just a lower high on the daily chart. Again, cannot stress enough the importance, or I should say the ease, of using these exponential resistances as a visual guide on the daily time frame. And ever since trading cryptocurrency, starting back a little over 2 years ago now, I have applied these moving averages to my stock trading. And just as a rough example, looking at CGC in the MJ sector, which has been getting crushed, nice bounce today, but look at the 4-hour, 12-period exponential resistance. This has been my guide for the week because every single bounce is rejecting from those levels. And here we are. I played this bounce today, and I'm taking some profit off because we're right at that exponential resistance level. So it's not only cryptocurrency that has this exponential moving average as a great visual guide. And just one more example, VFF in the MJ space, hourly exponential resistance. It was a beautiful guide for over a week, and here we are finally trying to get over that level. Back to crypto, Binance. So remember, Binance and Litecoin have led the way to the upside in 2019, and they're leading the way to the downside, and just in terms, not in terms of the size of the pullback, but in terms of pulling back first. We saw the monthly top in Binance starting to form with the bearish reversal candlestick, which was a spinning top, and then we confirmed it last month. So the speculation was if Binance, which is the lead bull in the cryptocurrency space, is showing us signs of monthly consolidation, we need to be watching for the potential that that's an indication that everybody in the crypto space is going to be looking for monthly consolidation. From there, Litecoin, Ethereum, they're seeing the same thing. And now are all three of those coins pulling back, giving us the heads up, hey, Bitcoin's likely to break 9,000 and pull back for a monthly higher low as well. So Binance bulls are definitely looking for a higher low to form compared to 412. I mean, we went 412 to 40, let's call it, and that is essentially getting down to 22 is the midway point. So this is one name that has not reached the midway point yet, but definitely worth scouting for Binance longer term entries for that monthly higher low. Again, no need to try and nail the bottom. If you want to scale in buying with, longer term mindset and lots of space in between your orders, solid $1 in between every buy-in. Let's say I want to scale in 5 position of Binance and I have a buy-in at 23.10, 22.10, 21.10. I'm spacing 4% between every level, and that's giving a lot of space. So I'm not going to try and nail the bottom, but trying to scale into weakness. And again, this is all hypothetical. I do not trade Binance personally, but if I had easier access to trading Binance, that would be definitely at the top of my list of potential plays to be looking for. Binance monthly higher low. And not necessarily looking for it now, but just that's something that I'm going to watch for the next 2 months. So looking at Binance on the 15 and 5 minute, very weak bounce. That's a 5 minute potential bear flag. Again, exponential resistance, just looking for a 5 minute lower high. We'll see what kind of follow through the bears have over the next few hours. Next support level on Binance, now that 24.17 has broken, psychological levels, 23.14, and then a lack of support, 23.14, 23, 22, and anything on the daily time frame under 27.19 is just a lower high. And last, we'll wrap it up with Link before I go back and check the short-term action and then look at some chat room comments. Bear break. So we're at the lowest price we've seen on Coinbase, which means that chart's no good to us anymore. Got to go to Binance. So clear bear break. We had a bear break earlier. It wasn't a clear bear break, but we started taking out some supports. Now we're under 1956. So the weekly higher low never formed. Look at every candlestick here giving us, or actually we just traded sideways. Almost a little, you could call that a bear flag if you wanted to. But either way, no bounce follow through and giving the vast majority of this bull candle back. We're looking back down at the low of this candle, 173. Let's see if there's any clear support levels before that. Next level, 173, 174 as far as clear support. Still a good bit percentage-wise above that. Setting clear little daily lower highs on the way down. Let's see how this Bitcoin bounce is going. 5-minute time frame, very weak. Could be a bear flag. Could see another leg down. And again, short-term support, 94.70. Break that level. The bears are proving themselves as being for real. And then we're looking down at 90.71 and 91.08 as the next key levels after that. So this is the point where hopefully we've all had game plans established. So hopefully we had a game plan established for a bull break of these tightening ranges and a bear break of these tightening ranges. And now that we're not seeing just Bitcoin making a move like we did 2 days ago, we're seeing Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin all breaking bearish. It's a much more unified move across the cryptocurrency space, so it's more believable. But as of right now, either bear entries were triggered into, bears are continuing to ride out their positions, or hopefully bulls were stopped out before too much carnage here. And again, if you're making a play based off of 9,000, that's a potential bottom fishing play. Just be very cautious, because if we break 9,000, there's a lack of clear support nearby. Next level I'd be looking at is 75.08 on the daily time frame. Actually, there's one more at 89.19. So 89.19, then 8,000, then 7,500s. So if you did not have a game plan, it's just a lesson, because again, establishing a game plan when you're rushed and alerts are firing off and price action is fast, that's not the time you want to be making a plan. That's when you're a deer in the headlights. We had days where we knew breaks are imminent. That's when you establish your game plan. So I'll answer any questions or look at some tickers here on the YouTube chat that you want to look at. And I got about another 9 minutes or so before I call it and get back into the stock world. Stocks are about to see a big spike in volatility as well to start off September, as they are in a nice tightening equilibrium. So for me personally, aside from my long-term no-touch positions, I'm all cash right now. And again, I'm in no rush to be trying to buy this dip right now. Congrats on that short play. Quick follow through. SYSBTC. So we did see a daily trend change, but I know that it's just a weekly lower high in the longer term, because anything under 454 is just a weekly lower high. So we have to be cautious of getting faked out in the sense that, okay, the daily trend has changed and the bounce is underway, but we know it's unlikely that we're going to go straight from the low and break the weekly resistances. So right now, looking at multiple weekly inside bars, still forming a tightening range. And we have clear resistance up at 304 and 318. And we just broke short-term support of 254. Not a whole lot of follow-through yet, but after 254, we're looking down at 236. And losing the daily uptrend is the first indication that a weekly lower high has been set. So weekly chart still in full control of the bears in this very long, drawn-out downtrend. We got stock traders in the room. I'm not going over stock tickers right now. I'm about to do that in a half hour for my end of the day live stream. Futures gaps. So there's a futures gaps out there. There's nothing saying that gaps have to fill. So that's step number one, or the basis of what we need to understand. Because Netflix, the stock, has gaps. I sold a Netflix earning gap up back when it was double digits, and now it's trading, what, 300 something? Back in my early days, I was locking in profit because of the gap, and it was a gap and run. So some of those gaps are never going to get filled. So I use gaps as targets. If I don't have any support levels nearby, it's just something I'll keep an eye on and say, okay, that's the gap fill. And I just know it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy where if I'm watching a gap and a lot of other traders are watching a gap, that's where people set their buy targets. So I've seen plenty of times where gaps do act as pivot points where we fill the gap to the upside and then drop down, or vice versa. So it's a good idea to be aware of where those gaps are, but you just want to be cautious and not say we're going to fill that gap, because that's not the case. Nothing is set in stone. We could likely fill that gap, but nothing is saying that we have to fill that gap. NEO USD. We'll go ticker to question to ticker to question. So NEO with a clear bear break. Dropping down under 914 and 915, which was a double bottom. So we're looking at $9 psychological. I want to know what the monthly chart looks like comparative to other names. The monthly consolidation clearly already underway. 546 was the low. 21 was the high. So that is, we're well below the midway point, around the $13 range. 841 is the next support level. We will be looking for a higher low compared to 546. Boy, oh boy, these altcoins better form monthly higher lows or it's going to get ugly. Again, I anticipate that's the most likely scenario. A higher low compared to 546, a lower high compared to 2085. But obviously there's no sign of that higher low forming. Step number one is change the daily trend. Still a very weak bounce attempt on Bitcoin. For me to say, all right, bulls played successful defense, give me a 15-minute trend change at a bare minimum. We haven't even started a 15-minute bounce yet. If we see a 15-minute bounce, set a lower high, hold the low, and then break the high, I'll say, all right, that's a pretty good successful hold of 94.70 for now. But at this point, all we're seeing is bears slowing down and taking a breather with the absolute possibility of seeing another leg down. GDAX, I don't think it's down. I'm not going to pull up my GDAX right now, but it was slow. So when things get crazy like this, definitely slow, definitely laggy. And in that kind of condition, again, you don't want to be forcing trades or getting into too big of a position if there's potential that your exchange can boot you out. And we've seen this plenty of times in the last few years where exchanges get bogged down with significant price action and everybody's orders going in and everybody jumping on their account to see what's going on. So you just want to be aware that that is an extra little added risk. A lot of stock traders in the room right now. Definitely been watching miners all day today. There's plenty of opportunity all over the place. And again, for me as a trader, definitely always interested in cryptocurrency. But when we're in environments like this, in tightening daily ranges, and now that we have a bear break, I am way more interested in the stock world, which has some great volatility. I will be back interested in the cryptocurrency space when monthly higher lows are forming, but that may be in a month or two. So keep in mind, I use Fidelity as a broker, keep in mind always the opposing side. If you're in a bear trade, you want to know what you'd be thinking if you were a bull. If you're in a bull trade, you want to know what you'd be thinking if you were a bear. So if I'm a bear right now, which I'm not, I have no bearish position, but if I had one, the only thing that would make me cautious or think of covering a position that I just entered on support breaking would be if the price got back to 10,000. If the price doesn't get back to 10,000, it's just a lower high on whatever time frame, take your pick. Just a 4-hour lower high, just an hourly lower high. So if you're going to see any kind of shift in momentum or any kind of short covering, there has to be pressure put on those shorts. So put yourself in that position. If I'm in a bearish position right now, I am pleased with my gains and either locking in a small portion of those gains and letting the rest of the position ride, or just waiting to see if we get another leg down in another hour or so. Not going to talk about stocks. I'm about to go talk about stocks for 45 minutes. I already talked about stocks for an hour and a half this morning. That's my daily routine. Just got stopped out of a SPXS position. That means SPY bulls made a break. That was a bit of a hedge I had going. Support levels on Bitcoin, 94.70 and then 9,000 are the two most important levels to me. So 15-minute time frame is what I'm going to look at for a lower high to form on this bounce from here. Bulls have to change the 15-minute trend. Not going to enter any trades at this point bullish on cryptocurrency until the bulls prove something to me. I'm not normally, I love oversold bounces. I use RSI levels. Short-term RSI levels go out the window when you trade in a really tight range and then break because they're really sensitive. And the longer-term RSI levels can get extended if we get follow-through on this move because it's such a clear pattern that everybody's watching. And if 9,000 breaks, a lot of people are going to get stopped out and a lot of bears are going to get in position. So it's not the kind of environment when you have a very clear pattern, and we've been in a tightening range now for Bitcoin for a month. When that very clear pattern breaks, just like the gold 2-year monthly equilibrium breaking and getting tons of follow through, the more clear the pattern, the higher the probability of significant follow through. So I'm not going to try and scale into an oversold bounce in my standard play. I'm going to wait for bullish momentum to return to the space. And if that means I have to wait for a daily trend change, I'm fine eliminating a lot of the risk of trying to scale in to give up some reward by not nailing the bottom. So at this point, I'm probably not interested in the cryptocurrency space as long as we have daily lower highs forming. That being said, that's not the case yet. If we break 9,000, that will be the case. If we hold 94.70 and 9,000 today, tomorrow, and we get back to 10,000 tomorrow, then I'm going to view this. What I'll do is I'll change the time frame to the 2-day chart or even the 3-day chart and say that we're still in a tightening range. You got to find a time frame I like here. So I could look at the 6-day chart. We have our high, low of the pullback, lower high, and if we don't drop down and break these supports, it's still a higher low. So there are time frames that you can look at and say we're still in a big longer term equilibrium, which is why the bears must prove themselves over the next 24 hours and break these support levels. Because if we don't, bulls still have a chance to keep this weekly support and keep the weekly higher low. So the weekly chart will be in a downtrend with this lower high at 12,300. And if we drop down and break 9,000, we're then in a weekly downtrend with a lower high and lower low. If we don't break 9,000, we're still in a weekly uptrend or just a tightening range, but we still have that base as a higher low to be watching. It would be great if everybody ran back to the MJ sector. It certainly needs it. The indicator for the numbers that I have is pivot points HL. And I changed the settings to 5. You can adjust those settings to have more numbers on your screen or less numbers on your screen. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here and then go do my stock thing. But bottom line takeaway from this video, obviously we had a bear break. You don't need me to tell you that. The takeaway is if the bears do not see follow through and break 9,470 and head down towards 9,000 in the next 24 hours, I view that as a successful hold by the bulls. If we get back to 10,000 and this is the low of the dump and then we just see slow recovery and then back to tightening ranges, I'm going to treat it as back to square one where we were 2 days ago, as far as tightening ranges, patiently waiting for clarity on these longer term levels. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And if you want to be aware of what's going on in the broader market as a whole, I put out daily S&P 500 videos. And again, we're getting to a pretty critical point, and it has certainly a major impact on what gold is doing. And indirectly, we've seen some correlations come and go between crypto, or notably Bitcoin, and the S&P 500. It hasn't been a strong correlation by any means, but just being aware of what's going on with the bigger picture overall market definitely can be applied to the cryptocurrency space as well. And like I said, S&P 500, just pull it up here as we're leaving. This is SPY, which tracks the S&P 500 on the daily chart. And we had our big drop, which spiked fear in the market in August. And since then, it's been a fairly standard equilibrium, which is what we expect after big spikes in volatility. And now we're going to be looking up in which direction we're going to break. We're near the middle of this range. If we break the lows of August, you better believe that CNBC and the market as a whole and the herd is going to start being very fearful again. And if we break this high of this bounce, we're looking back at all-time highs. So pretty much direction for September is going to be dictated by how this pattern breaks, in my opinion. So thanks for tuning in. Wanted to go live just because the short-term action was relevant, and it takes about 30 minutes to process and upload and all that fun stuff otherwise. Show me what you got, Bears. Break 94.70 by tonight. We'll see. So we'll check back in sometime tomorrow and see if the Bears did get that follow through or not. Stay protective out there. As always, establish your game plans. Use stop levels. And I'll see you soon. Do good things. Thanks.